All right. This has been some of the funniest experiences I've ever had tonight. Listen, if you don't watch this later, you should see what happened. And I'm gonna upload the video still because this shit was hilarious. I was Zoom bombed, and apparently that's a thing. And I want to teach y'all about it so it won't happen to you. But anyways, it's your man Ernest. You love Ernest, same guy, different name. Back again with another episode of the Ernest Thoughts podcast. Let me get right into the topics and whatever. So this first topic is pretty much about the update of this podcast and what I got going on. So as of the past few weeks, if you've been listening to the podcast, especially if you're someone who listened to the podcast, appreciate the listen, but you've known that the last couple episodes have been interviews. Now, I did that because, initially I didn't think about doing as many interviews as I have been doing. But people have been reaching out, and I've reached out to people as well, and it just seemed as though, interviews were just happening. So I did those interviews with those folks, and those have been the episodes of the Ernest Thoughts podcast. The problem lies in a number of things. One, let's talk about the viewership. The numbers went down. The viewer numbers for the podcast went down simply because I take it that many people who subscribe to the podcast, or hopefully didn't unsubscribe, but maybe they did, who subscribed to the podcast, listened to it faithfully. They wanted to the podcast to be what it really is. Me talking about the various topics that I talk about, just my voice, not other people talking about, their profession and who they are and what they got going on. Although there have been people who listen to the podcast and have reached out and said, I really enjoyed your talk with this person or that person. I learned so much from this interview, this, that, and the third, or just expressing what they got from it. I think the original, point of them tuning in the podcast in the first place, and the original point of me even doing the podcast in the first place, was for me to just share my thoughts, earnest thoughts, on the various topics that I want to talk about. Simple as that. So, yeah, I can understand why if somebody were to see a bunch of interviews and they're like, this is not what I signed up for. It was cool at first or whatever. Or, I don't mind this every once in a while, but if it's becoming the new norm for the podcast, then I'm out. I'm going elsewhere. So that was the thing. I saw the numbers dropping and I'm like, yeah, you know what? How can I make it so that I can get these interviews out? Because I didn't want to just not upload the interviews. I already did it. I took the time to do them. It's time consuming. It's all that other stuff. I did the work. I have all the copies of the interviews on my desktop. Ain't no way in hell I was just going to scrap all that damn work I did, all those hours or times I did speaking to individuals, simply because, there are people who don't like or don't necessarily care to hear what, I have to say to these people or what they have to say in general. I understand that, but I'm not going to scrap all that. So what I decided to do personally was to initially start a new podcast. Literally, I started it today, and the first episode will be uploaded. It's actually in the process of being uploaded, but it will be up tomorrow, pretty much, of that podcast, and it's pretty much just the last interview that I did, or the next interview that was scheduled, that would have been on the Ernest Thoughts podcast, scheduled for tomorrow's episode. Or, if you're not watching this live, which nobody is at the moment, but for tomorrow's episode, um, you know, had I continued to upload the episodes on the Ernest Thoughts podcast. I'm keeping the podcast strictly about me. Now, I'm doing it in a live stream form because obviously I want people to come in, chime in, join the chat. If people want to hop in on the live and share their thoughts on whatever I'm talking about, people can do so. But This is not going to be an interview type thing. It's going to be me talking about whatever I want to talk about. And if they have something to say about what I say and about the topics, then they can chime in, or whether that be via the comment section, the live comments, or they show up on camera right now. That's that case, number one. Um, as long as they don't get on here and try to do nothing goofy like, the kids that was interrupting me on Zoom, which I'll upload that video tomorrow sometime this week, man. That shit was funny. But yeah, as long as they don't do that, then there's really no problem going on at all. But yeah, I wanted to separate the two and pretty much have it streamlined in a way that is satisfactory to me as the creator, but also satisfactory to the listeners out there. There might be people who really liked listening to the interviews, right? It wasn't like they were getting 0 views. It's just when I look at the numbers, these views were significantly lower than my traditional episodes, episodes like this where I'm just talking. And I believe, and I attribute that to, again, people just being disinterested in the podcast because they were disinterested in the interviews that I've been doing for, I want to say, the past several weeks now. And that would have gone on for several more weeks because I have a bunch of more interviews, like I said, already done. All these interviews, by the way, are pre-recorded, as in they're already done. Now, there are people hit me up now still wanting to do interviews. And yes, there will be interviews on that pod. First of all, that podcast is called the Guest Spotlight Podcast, or the Guest Spotlight. Forget the podcast. It's a podcast, but it doesn't have the word podcast in the name. You know what I'm saying? It's not like an Earnest Thoughts podcast or the My 2 Cents podcast. It's just called the Guest Spotlight. So I don't know if I'm going to have video for that yet, like I have video for this podcast now. All I know is it's going to be audio. I mean, you're going to be able to listen to it still. But if you want to subscribe to that, you can subscribe to it on Spotify, Anchor, and pretty much all the other platforms you can listen to this podcast. Once again, it's called The Guest Spotlight. You just go there, check that out. Subscribe to that. I want to sneeze, but I'm trying to hold it back. But go there, subscribe, and that's where you're going to get the interviews. I'll try to remember to leave the link to that podcast in the description box below of this episode. Just so for those who want to go there and subscribe. For now, that's going to be ran like a weekly podcast. So like this podcast, like the My 2 Cents podcast, it's going to be a weekly basis, only because, again, I have a whole backlog full of pre-recorded interviews I've already done that I can literally upload one of those podcasts, or even all of them, really, but one of those interviews per week, and that's how I plan to do so. But as far as making an effort to have an interview a week, that's not something that I plan on doing. If I, and again, there are people reaching out and I still have to answer to them. I haven't answered to anybody yet, but I do plan on responding to those, at least those that I feel as though are going to be an interesting guest. If not, I'm just not going to say anything. Simple as that. Anyways, I don't plan on making it a weekly thing, as far as I'm not going to make a concerted effort to look for people every week, interview them, and then upload it. If it happens that way, it happens that way. But I can tell you right now, it's not going to be an intended effort on my end. Like this podcast, like the My 2 Cents podcast. It's not going to be an intended effort to make it that way. It's literally just a place where I could put the interviews. That's that. There have been times, now this year has been the most interviews I've ever done so far in all of my years of podcasting, as far as one specific year. Prior to that, I was only doing maybe interviews, and I only started doing interviews in 2020, to be real with y'all. So since then, I've only did about one. Since then, it was only about maybe 1 to 2 podcast interviews per year. As you can see, it was more than that this year. So I don't know if that trend is going to continue for this foreseeable future. It really, again, depends on how many guests I accept, how many interested folks it is, scheduling, of course, all the other stuff, and yeah, all that good shite there. That goes into that update, or this side of the update, this part of this update. Second part, which is more so about the guest, right? Now, and I also got to continue to remind y'all about this. I have a podcast class, or how to podcast. I call it the anti-disaster class, not a master class, but the podcast anti-disaster class. Link of that will be in the description box below as well. So in this segment here, I'm not going to detail you every single thing, because one of the lessons that I want to cover in this class, which I have all the lessons just ready to be taught, not just in my head, but just notes-wise as well. I'm just waiting to get subscribers for that. If I don't get subscribers for this class, the class doesn't happen. It's like a college course, There's not enough people who sign up for the course doesn't happen. That's how I'm running it, So subscribe if you want to know how to start your podcast. I have one individual who said he wanted to do so. I let him know about it. He still has yet to sign up. So if this is the ball's in y'all's court, to all the individuals that's like, you should start a podcasting class, or you give me pointers on how to start and maintain a podcast. This class that I have on Patreon is the class for that. You sign up. I believe the amount is about I think it's $25 a month or $25. I could be wrong. I could be stretching out the price. I know it's a monthly payment, and you get all the courses for free. Well, not for free, but you're paying for all the courses and stuff. So if I do for that month, by the way, you're not paying per course. You're paying for the month. So if you pay the fee, which I got to look back again, I'm forgetting my own damn pricing, right? Let's just say if it was $25. If you paid $25 for this month, right? This month of May, you're getting all the courses for the month of May. You're not, again, if there's 10 courses, if there's 11, there's 5, there's 100, you're getting all those courses for that price. It's not $25 per course. Have to make that clear. Now, if there's enough people that want it to be, I don't know if I could change that. Patreon is weird where you can't really change pricing things, or you can't change how the payments are done. If you're dissatisfied with the number of courses after you've paid, or whatever the case is, feel free to unsubscribe. Feel free to drop the class, per se. That doesn't mean you're going to get your money back, because when you drop a class in real life, you have 2 weeks to do so before it's like, well, it's just a withdrawal on your work record and whatever the case is. But essentially when you drop the class, it's not like you get your money back. You just simply do not get charged for that class. That's not going to work that way because I'm not a college or university. But at the same time, you pay, you get the courses. If it ends up only being 3 courses this month and you want 10, right? And you pay 25 because you're like, I was expecting 10 courses and only got 3. You should care more about the quality of the information you're getting rather than how much information you're getting, because you can get a lot of information out there, but not a lot of people are going to tell you quality information. It's a difference, simply because someone's giving you a lot of info out there, whether that be in relation to how to create a podcast or whatever the case is. Somebody can give you a lot of info about bullshit. But if it's all just rubbish and BS, which I forgot to mention this. I know I'm rambling a lot. I forgot to mention this. I'm live on YouTube right now. I didn't think I could go live on YouTube ever again, but I'm live on YouTube. Anyways, people can give you a lot of information about a lot of BS. That does not make the information valuable. It just simply means that there's a lot of BS out there that can be fed to somebody. So it's really your choice at the end of the day. But, I'm a quality over quantity individual all the time, or the majority of the time. So with that being said, you sign up for the courses, you're going to get some, trust me, you're going to get the quality. So don't even worry about that aspect. You're going to get the quality that you're looking for, and I'll give you the tools to start your podcast, all that other good stuff. Now on to the actual update. Again, that will be in the description box below. So, guest. One of the reasons, as I stated before, let me drink some water, take a sip. Ain't nobody watching, so I could do that. Now, one of the reasons as to why I wanted to get back into the flow of these solo episodes is because I personally got tired of interviewing guests. I'm glad that I still have at least maybe 5 or 6 more weeks worth of content for the guest spotlight, that of separate podcast. Once again, linked in the description box below, because I just got tired of interviewing people, to be honest with you. I am naturally an introvert, for those who can't tell or for those who don't know me or whatever. So just talking to people, especially strangers, can get very draining to me. You could take all that information however you want to take it, but it can get very draining to me, especially people that I feel as though not all the guests were this way. Most of the interviews that I've done, at least so far, were actually with great people. But then some of these interviews, I just felt like it was business as usual. Let me just put it that way. It was just, let me keep it professional because this person's going to make me come up out my face. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of these individuals is just rude and high and mighty. And to be honest with y'all, it really ain't shit. Now, again, there's a lot of people that I interviewed. A lot of those interviews that you may have listened to on the Ernest Thoughts podcast. But by the way, I'm removing them at some point this week. And I'm thinking Wednesday. It's Wednesday coming up, which will be the 24th, I think. 5th or 4th. Either or, the Wednesday coming up. I plan on stripping those episodes and then putting them on the guest spotlight, which means, again, if you want to listen to them and you are subscribed to the Ernest Thoughts podcast, I hope you continue to be subscribed to the Ernest Thoughts podcast, but they're going to be on the guest spotlight from now on. Anyways, a lot of those individuals were really cool and really dope, and I feel as though if you listen to those interviews, you can tell that I was enjoying myself. You can tell they were cool as well. But also, there were times where it was just like, I'm interviewing a jerk and I'm going to continue this interview because they haven't said anything yet to totally piss me off to say, fuck this, I'm out. But at the same time, I'm not going to, it's just going to be, let's keep it professional. Let's not ever talk ever again, and that's the case with a lot of guests, that I've interviewed. It's just, we did our thing and I don't want you back on anymore because you just rude as hell. The vibe, especially, is just not something that I'm feeling. I'm big on vibes, and I know vibe checks and all this other stuff is a run-on joke on the internet, and I partake in it as well because I think it's funny. But I truly am someone that's big on just a person's vibe. And there are quite a few people that I discussed and even interviews that never happened simply because, that were like this close to happening. and they just never did, simply because the vibe of the individual was just off. I think a lot of people talk to you, especially guests of podcasts, end up talking to you a certain way because they, again, they might think they are, I'm glad they have the high self-esteem of themselves. They have this high self-worth, but they believe that they're going to add something to your podcast that hasn't already been said before a billion times. As much as I love my meditation folks, how many folks came on this podcast within the past few weeks, within the past year, talking about meditation and mindfulness and all that other stuff? A lot of them had the same thing. Now, I could have said, I could have said no, but I still said yeah, simply because all these individuals are different, obviously. And, I didn't know necessarily whether they were going to say the same thing as someone else or, have a different take on it. So that's why I wanted them. And I think for a lot of the people, especially, a lot of authors or just people in other fields, I think that their perspective on the thing is a perspective that I am interested in listening to. So that's why I said yeah to a lot of them. But if you're going to get on here and you're going to talk about, again, I'm not dragging meditation. I'm just using that as the example. If you're going to get on here and talk about meditation as if you're the only individual in the world who meditates, as if if you just came up with this revelation and then, have this idea that you're the messiah of meditation and, I should be bowing down to you simply because you have agreed to come on the podcast to talk about meditation, something that 10 other people before you agreed to talk about, something that 5 of those 10 other people reached out to me and said, I would like to come on your show to talk about. You're not saying anything, or at least you're not talking about anything super special. Again, or super different, and put it that way. Again, I'm not saying you got to talk about something no one's ever talking about. That's great if you have that perspective and you're like, I'm going to go on the guest spotlight, not the Earnest Thoughts podcast, but the guest spotlight, and I'm going to talk about something that ain't been talked about before on the guest spotlight, because he's got 50 billion episodes about meditation. He's got all these authors promoting their book and all this other stuff. He got these people in his professional world. He got all these other creative types. I want to talk about, I don't know, frogs. Let's talk about frogs and why they're so important to the ecosystem, right? If that individual got the information, I'm going to be like, hey, let's talk about frogs. It's the first time somebody's came on this show to talk about some frogs. Let's get it. Let's do it. You don't have to be that different, but do not have this attitude that you're doing me a favor or you're doing the audience a favor by getting on here and talking about whatever you want to talk about. Because I could say no. And the audience had spoken, or at least the Earnest Thoughts podcast audience has spoken with the declining numbers of those episodes compared to the solo episodes. They don't want to hear y'all. I'm going to keep it a buck. They don't want to hear y'all. So don't get on here and don't talk to me especially, and try to act like you're doing me a favor when you're actually hurting me. And I saw the numbers dwindle probably around the 3rd or 4th week of the interview episodes I was doing. I still uploaded them simply because I'm like, well, I did these interviews, and I didn't want to just scrap them and not upload them. I did all this time. I talked to this individual, or I really enjoyed this interview. I don't care if the people don't like it or don't want to hear this. I want the world to hear it, so I'm putting it out there. And that's the point in the interviews in general, still. These episodes, what I do, just the interviews in general, still. The main point is I give these people the spotlight simply because I feel like what they have to say is interesting, even if it's about a topic 10 other people have already came to me about. Whether that be meditation, whether that be people promoting their books, whether that be of someone in a professional world, in politics, in the medical field, or whatever the case is. I still feel as though the information should be out there, and I want to give them the spotlight to do so. So why not? So that's why with the guest spotlight, I decided to do that, have that be a separate thing where it's not hurting the Earnest Thoughts podcast in any way. And therefore, I can still help these people get their word out there by not hurting my own podcast and the own purpose of this podcast, right? Yeah, it was good not having to sit on the camera for hours and hours on end to talk and all that stuff. But I do miss chiming in on topics and shit. That's number one. Number two, hey, you gotta do what you gotta do, and what I had to do was separate the interviews from the actual point of the Earnest Thoughts podcast. The Earnest Thoughts podcast, the point is for me to do the talking, for me to share my thoughts on the shit that I want to talk about. Like I'm talking about, guests right now. So, as I was stating before, I as an interviewer, I got interview fatigue, I guess. I don't know if other people, this is why I can't interview people. I can't go into communications and interview people. Yawn. But y'all peep the guns, though? Hope y'all do. The playback, at least. Ain't nobody watching this still. But, yeah, this is why I can't necessarily just sit down and all the time. And again, I was doing 2-3 podcast interviews per week just to make up the amount of people that was constantly in my inbox, constantly in my emails, looking to be interviewed on the show. Again, I appreciate that is even a thing. I appreciate the fact that I got people hit me up and was like, I heard your podcast, I heard your interview with this person, and I think that the interview went so well that I want to be a guest, or, so-and-so told me about this, or, I think I'll be a great guest on your podcast, and I like your podcast, your interviewing style and all that stuff. I like how laid back and all that other good shit. Those are the individuals, simply those people are literally the saving grace for all guests. Let me keep it clear. Let me be honest. Those individuals who've done that stuff are the saving grace for all the guests. Simply because they get it. They understand that, if I'm going to be on this podcast, I'm going to be myself. I know what to expect, and I'm here to just simply talk about whatever I want to talk about. And as long as I'm respectful to the host, as long as I'm respectful to Ernest, he is going to give me the time to talk about whatever I want to talk about. And he's not going to be on here and he's not trying to get me on some gotcha moments or whatever. He's actually cool. He's actually he's actually doing something that is going to benefit me and all this other stuff, right? He's actually giving me what I want. So I'm not going to be a jerk to him or jerk about the timing and all this other stuff. The other motherfuckers, though, the reason why this shit can be super draining, complete opposite of that mentality. I've canceled on people. I've had to damn near curse people out just last week. So I'm on this platform called Pod Matches where I'm getting all the connections to the majority of the interview connections, right? Spoke to this dude probably months ago or whatever. It's been months, right? I told a lot of people. He was one of the individuals I told for sure. But I told a lot of people that as soon as I started this new job that I started 3 months ago, by the way, that's how long ago motherfuckers knew, especially him, knew that the schedule was going to change for me 3 months in advance, or 3 months notice in advance that my schedule was going to change. And I said that it might not even go back to being the availability as far as when I could interview people, because I was doing them all on the weekends because those are the only 2 days still currently that I have free. I work Monday through Friday all fucking day. So with that being said, I was telling people 3 months ago, keep it in mind, 3 months ago, giving them a 3-month warning. So people can say what the fuck they want about me or whatever. He's super unprofessional. He was rude. He gave you a 3-month warning. And your bitch ass didn't like that. So what I'm saying here is, again, story time. So we're on Podmatch, and Podmatch, one of the ways you can schedule, one of the ways people can schedule, to do a podcast with whoever they're doing the podcast is through Calendly, right? The platform where you could pretty much have an online calendar and people set up availability times and all that other good stuff. Rah. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I had the Calendly. That's crazy. I've noticed my first time actually saying it out loud. I've always typed out Calendly, so I can't say a word. But I've had the Calendly link on my Podmatch page. I had it up there, but I also let the guests know, even when I still had it up there, that simply because the Calendly link shows these slots, these time slots and days are available, does not mean that they're actually available, that I'm actually available. So please check in with me before you sign up for a date. Majority of the people, they did that. About 20-30% of the people did not. And I know it's someone's going to be like, well, don't let those people ruin everything and all this other stuff. I get it. But this is I still think that's a big enough number for me to want to speak out again about it. There were people like this one guy that I had to go off on last week via email and everything. There was people like him that continuously would book random dates on the Calendly link without even confronting me first about it, consulting me first about the date, seeing if I was even available at the date or time, even though I made it clear to him. And like I said to everybody else, hey, come to me first, ask me first before you book it. I don't care what the fucking link says. You come to me first because the link isn't me. Yeah, the link is up there, but it's not. These are not schedules that I'm purposely putting up. It's a fucking calendar app. They're gonna predate. They're gonna have the dates up there already. But come to me first and ask me. He clearly didn't understand the message. And this is not someone that was hard of English. He's some white guy from America. Just another entitled white guy just who thought his time and his say was more important than anybody else's, especially someone who he's trying to come on their podcast show. It wasn't the other way around. It wasn't me trying to go on his show. It was him trying to come on my show. But even as the host, the creator, the handler of all of this, he still felt that his wants, his needs, his time, or whatever was a lot more important than mine. Therefore, he didn't have to listen to me when I made it clear to him 3 times that you do not just randomly put dates on the show, on the Calendly link, and then get upset with me when I don't follow through with those links because I was at work, because I was busy, because I never agreed to that link, because you never came to me and said, hey, Ernest, is it okay if we record on this date, this time? He never did that. There were other guests who never did that. but yet they got upset when I didn't show up to something that they booked. When I made it clear to them as well, you have to come to me first in my inbox, in my email, social media even. Those people hit me up on Instagram and say, hey, is it okay if we can record on this day and this time? And then obviously if I agree, we can. Obviously, if it's a no, it's a no. But obviously, you have to find out first. You can't just assume because a fucking calendar app has an open date. Golly gee, it's a calendar app. It's going to have open dates until somebody clicks on that date and that time and then book it. And then that time is not going to be available for someone else to click on it because your dumbass already clicked on it before you can even get some confirmation. That's how Calendly works. But this is how human interaction works. You go and you ask somebody a question before you get a confirmation on said answer. There were so many guests who did that, and it got so progressively annoying. Again, like I said, it was only about 20 or 30% of the people who've reached out. Still, annoying as shit, nonetheless. Very annoying. Especially when you're telling people, hey, don't do that. Come to me. Just like how you came to me and asked me to come, if you can come on a show. And I said, yeah, let's discuss about a date. But instead of you answering that question, you went straight to the Calendly app just to book a time and thought that was enough discussion. I wasn't discussing anything at all. Now people can, well, maybe they didn't have the time to respond to the email or the message or the whatever. First of all, you should see how long these initial messages are for them to plead to come on the podcast, for them to ask to get on the podcast in the first place. And again, it may seem like I'm complaining. I don't want to make it seem as though that I'm doing that. But I do have to say this. I do have to speak these points out because I do have to put it out there. And again, I want to furthermore discuss specifics about how to deal with people like this in my podcast anti-disaster courses. I'm going to discuss that. Again, link in the description box below. If that is something you're interested in, that is a course that I will be teaching. How to deal with people like that. Appropriately, of course. But how to deal with individuals like that. Because this isn't just a random podcast class where I'm just telling you the equipment and all that stuff. I want to get you mentally prepared for what it means to be a podcaster and how to do this, right? Because that's what's going to set me apart. Or I feel as though that's what sets my class apart from the other courses. People are just going to tell you the ins and outs of podcasting. But there's a mental aspect of it as well that is very important. And that's the side that I'm going to discuss a lot during my anti-disaster classes. So again, if you're interested in all of that aspect, not just the equipment you should use, the topics you should talk about, how long the episode should be, or when to upload, or how to promote, but how to handle it mentally. If that is the stuff that you're looking for, subscribe to the anti-disaster class. Link in the description box below. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. This guy, he did that. A number of other guests, they did that. Or potential guests, because he wasn't a guest, right? And there were some guests, and I won't name names, but there were some guests who were just as rude as this guy. Or just as, hard of listening, I guess, as this guy. A lot of doctors, too. A lot of people with the doctor in their name. That's the only... That's a lot of college-educated folks. I make that point just to say, A lot of these folks out here really think they smarter than you know, simply because they got certain degrees and because they have doctor in front of their name. But they can't read simple directions, as in, do not click on the Calendly link without, coming to me first and confirming a date. They can't follow those directions. So I took off the Calendly link. And then I made an announcement saying, hey, this is why I took off the Calendly link. I will no longer allow people to schedule through Calendly. What I will do now is only schedule through Zoom. And the only way you can get Zoom scheduling is through talking to me. Again, confirming the date. Again, a lot of these college educated professors, doctors, and all this other people. But what, I don't see a Galilee. What happened to the Galilee? Did you read the literally the announcement on my page? You said you read the bio for the podcast and you liked it. The announcement is above the bio. Did you skip straight to the bio? That's a longer read than an announcement. The announcement was a sentence. Hey, I took off the Calendly link because of this. Talk to me, inbox me if you want to become a guest. It's really that simple. The bio is under that. And speaking of the bio, there's a lot of people who dumbasses, and I'm going to talk about this on the in the courses again. There's a lot of people, a lot of my guests, even the good ones, but a lot of them had no idea what they were getting into when they messaged me. I'm going to go as far as saying I don't even think a lot of them even knew I was black. Yeah. I think a lot of them didn't even listen to the episode. I think it's obvious the ones who do listen or did listen to the episodes or the Earnest Thoughts podcast, but a lot of them didn't even know I was black, which is crazy because, my face is on. I have a picture on my Gmail. So if we were corresponding through email, you saw my face. Now, granted, that is an old-ass picture. If anyone knows that picture of my Gmail, you probably you didn't change much facial feature-wise, whatever. That's actually a picture of me graduating high school. Just saying. It's an old-ass picture. Either or, you should. I'm still black. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you, bro. You saw the black man in the high school graduate black man in that picture. That's me. It's not just some random. I don't blackfish. I am a blackfish. So I don't know what to tell you, bro. I don't know. There's that thing. I do understand that on Podmatch, I just got the logo of the Earnest Thoughts podcast, which I'm going to have to switch up to the Guest Spotlight podcast so people can understand. You're not going to be a guest on the Earnest Thoughts podcast because I will no longer have guests on the Earnest Thoughts podcast unless it's people who join the live stream and they want to chime in on the topics at hand. And only they are able to talk about the topics at hand, not anything else. If they want to talk about something else, then they are very welcome to come on the Guest Spotlight. But anyways, I understand if they were like, well, I didn't know what you look like. I didn't know who I was necessarily talking to. Simply because you only have your logo, right? And my logo doesn't have my face in it. For those who obviously know what's up, my logo doesn't have my face in it. So with that being said, yeah, I can see why people were confused, but they also, when I was talking to these guests, right, or before even recording, a lot of them would have then qualifier questions for me before they ended up wanting to join, simply because, oh my God, black guy, I'm nervous. I got to tell her what I got to say, or I don't know what he's going to ask me. shit like that, right? you know, um, and I've said this before, but I'm gonna say it again. And this is not even something that this is for podcast guests. Don't reach out to podcasts if you're not going to be comfortable with speaking with them. Black, white, male, female, whoever. Also, know who the fuck you're going to be talking to. If you plan on talking about meditation, your book, some science, some philosophy you came up with, why not look into the individual? And shout out to the guests who might be listening to this, who have done that. Because again, there have been people who've reached out, was like, yo, I listened to the podcast and I enjoy it, or I listened to your interview with so and so and I really enjoyed that and I really want to be a guest. This ain't about y'all. This is about the 90+%, because only about 4 or 5 people that I've ever interviewed. Now, not everybody that I haven't interviewed or have interviewed was shell-shocked to see that a black man spoke intelligently and he is having a podcast and he's not talking about black stuff. Whatever the fuck that is, right? Not everybody was shell-shocked. You had those who was like, they know what it was. You had those who had no idea who I was and, all this other stuff, but was still cool because they came on and they wanted to talk about whatever they wanted to talk about. They didn't care who was on the other side of the camera. But then you had those who was super, if you saw the look on their faces once the camera turned on, man, that's the stuff you didn't see as a listener, because before I hit record, obviously you can't see what was pre-recorded unless you was in on that Zoom call, which none of y'all was. So the faces, the expressions of these fools, especially when I did the intro, I would sometimes try to insinuate the "what's up" part just to scare these crackers, because there'll be a number of them that jump all because a nigga said "what's up." What's up, y'all? It's your man Ernest, and you love Ernest. Same guy, different name. That intro is not gonna stop. It's my spin on someone's already existing intro, whatever the case is, right? But the intro is not going to stop because, oh my God, relax. Don't come on the guest spotlight, because you ain't coming on the Ernest Talks podcast anymore. Don't come on the guest spotlight thinking that, my podcast is going to be like somebody else's. It's not. Don't come in. That's another thing. I mentioned that before. I mentioned that on Podmatch. My podcast is not like any other podcast you may have been on or that you saw. And I've detailed to y'all in the past before about the guest that I had. One of the first guests that I had who had the nerve to hit me up on Facebook, and he was like pretty much saying, this is a podcast that I was on before, and you should ask these questions, or you should model your podcast like this other podcast that I was on. Nigga, don't y'all ever think about trying to compare me to somebody else. If you had a better time on somebody else's podcast, I'm glad you had a better time. Go to those motherfuckers' podcasts and speak whatever, talk whatever you want to talk about, and just don't come back on here. But simply do not tell me to say, hey, be like these people, because that's exactly what that dude was doing. And that's why he is never going to be a guest on my podcast ever again. Yes, I let him know too. I'm not going to say the name, but yeah, he knows this, and he feels hella dumb after that, because he then tried to softcore apologize and tried to, I was just suggesting, man, and it was nothing, blah, blah, blah. And nah, you weren't suggesting shit. I know how to read between lines. What you were saying was that you like the kissassery and the all the other shit that podcaster was giving you, and you wanted me to do what that guy did. And let me just tell you right now, I really wasn't that fucking interested in your fucking philosophy to begin with. So of course I'm not gonna ask you kiss-asseries ass questions. I'm gonna give you the spotlight to talk about whatever the hell you want to talk about. But don't expect me to act like I'm super interested in something I'm really not. You know? That's just all there is to it. Anyways, this is going on for 50 fucking minutes, and I still got other topics to talk about, to be real with y'all. So this is titled Save Mason, Tennessee. This is one of the topics that I really wanted to talk about weeks ago. This is still something that I really want to discuss. I have the article pulled up on a different browser here. And I'll try to have timestamps in the description box. But I know last live stream that I uploaded here, I didn't have the timestamps. I was lazy, so there's that. Anyways, let me read from this article here. Town of Mason files suit against Tennessee comptroller. An emergency hearing over the comptroller's financial oversight of the rural majority black town took to take place on Wednesday. So let me continue scrolling down so I can get to the meat and potatoes. The town of Mason's elected leaders have filed a lawsuit against Comptroller Jason Mumpower, seeking an immediate halt to a financial takeover of the small majority black community in rural West Tennessee, located just miles from a new electric car plant expected to economically rejuvenate the region. In the petition filed Friday afternoon, Mason's mayor on the board of aldermen are seeking a ruling from the court that the comptroller's actions are illegal under state law. The comptroller does not have the power to take full control of Mason's financial expenditures, the suit claims. The state's financial oversight plan also violates the Tennessee Constitution and the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. Trying to take over Mason's finances without proper justification, and because most of the town's leadership and residents are African American, the lawsuit says. Mason is represented by attorneys with the NAACP National Organization and its Tennessee chapter. Hopefully they're doing something over there, because I have zero trust and zero faith in the NAACP right now. That's for a future topic at hand. Next, the proposed treatment of Mason and itself and its leadership is marked by irregularities irregularities. I'm tired and I can't read. And differs significantly from the treatment of similarity situated predominantly white jurisdictions, the attorneys wrote. Of course, an attorney would say that, all the lees and ers and all that shit. The fact that attempted takeover is being perpetuated now rather than years ago, with when Mason's white leadership actually caused the financial issues, complaining of demonstrates the comptroller's actions are inconsistent with typical government actions and the comptroller's own history of handling jurisdictions experiencing financial difficulties. An emergency hearing has been set for Wednesday in Davidson County Chancery Court by Chancellor Ann Martin. John Dunn, a spokesman for the comptroller on Sunday declined to comment on pending litigations. In her order, Martin set a deadline of 3 p.m. Tuesday for the state's legal response, which will be filed by the Attorney General's office. Takeover garners national attention. That's paragraph. The comptroller's dispute with Mason captured widespread public interest last month after Mumpower took the unprecedented step of mailing a letter to 1,337 of its residents. The letter said the letter said Mason could be left out of opportunities that loom ahead with the arrival of a new 5.7 billion Ford Motor plant. As a result of a long history of poor financial management by city leaders, leaving it in deep debt and with the highest tax rate in the country, god damn, Mumpower made a direct appeal to residents, encouraging them to urge their elected officials to cede the town's charter. Let me take a sip. High taxes is an MFer, right? But that's the least of the problems here that's going on. Let's continue. The new Ford plant offers a major opportunity to West Tennessee, but Mason will be left out if it continues to be judged by its poorly run government. It should have said ran government, but poorly run government. I'm making a correction. Poorly ran government. The letter said the comptroller has subsequently noted that Mason's financial problems are ongoing, including delays in submitting budgets and audits required by law and improperly transferring customer utility payments into the town's general budget. Ceding Mason's character would subsume the majority black, majority Democrat community into predominantly white, majority Republican Tipton County. At a community meeting on March 14th, Vice Mayor Virginia Rivers said town leaders had no intention of ceding a charter that dates back to 1871. Rivers told the Tennessee Lookout that the comptroller's actions were akin to a hostile takeover. Sure is. And she questioned their timing just ahead of the large manufacturing investments in Tennessee history, just 5 miles from Mason, that will bring more residents, more business, and broader tax base, tax base. Rivers noted that the financial debt accrued by town government occurred in prior administrations, which were predominantly white. Mason's mayor, vice mayor, and 5 of its 6 aldermen are black. Days after the community meeting, Mumpower announced he would move forward to take financial control, imposing a strict budget to make payments on improperly transferred utility funds and requiring that any expenditure over $100 receive his office's approval. I'm going to continue reading, but I have to say, pretty much for those who are trying to follow along, this black town was, like a lot of black towns in the USA, especially, Black Wall Street, whatever. It was thriving under the control of black folks. We were working with, and when I say we, I mean as black folks, black Americans and stuff, but the black folks living there. We or they were working under the very fucking little that we're given in the first place. and we was making shit pop. We was making things work, right? In comes this white man who says we can't have these niggas advancing, not under my control, not under the white man's noses. Therefore, I'm going to take over. But when I take over, I'm going to do everything wrong so this town fails, so we don't have another thriving black community, because we cannot have thriving black towns, thriving black communities, because we a bunch of bitch ass haters. Now, let me continue on reading. The takeover, however, could be shorter than the comptroller initially predicted. After Mason officials used Federal American Rescue Act funding to pay down its utility debt, Mumpower said, Mason officials also provided accounts to show a history of debt payments in the past year. The takeover arrangement formally begins Monday. Ford Motor officially also weighed in, saying they had reached out to the comptroller, local officials, and expressed concern. Since then, civil rights organizations, including the NAACP and the Equity Alliance, have sent staff and volunteers to Mason to hold meetings and knock on doors, saying they want to show support. Nets. This who the hell is my look? This is Mumpower. Oh, thumbhead ass looking at this dude. If you to see what this man looked like, can I share screen? I don't. Y'all gotta see. Y'all really got to see. You don't have access to this feature. I don't know what the hell. Y'all gotta see what Mumpower looked like. God damn, that old thumbhead ass nigga. Anyways, you know what? Mumpower is going to be the fucking thumbnail. Listen, you bitch. You the thumbnail. Look at this dude. He's the thumbnail. He's going to be the thumbnail. That he's the thumbnail. Yeah, you cracker. Anyways, that bitch is the thumbnail. Y'all gotta look at him. Anyways, where was I? Lawsuit. Inconsistent and irregular steps. The lawsuit narrates a timeline of contracts between the comptroller's office and Mason officials that lays out an intermittent engagement with Mason officials prior to September 2021. You can tell this guy goes to KKK meetings. I'm just, god damn, this man ugly as shit. Immediately following Governor Bill Lee's, Robert E. Lee's descendant, I guess. Bill Lee's September 28 announcement of Ford's new blue oval city. Oh, he's a Ford Lee. I don't know. Electric vehicle plant. The computer increased contact, seeking nearly twice monthly touch base meetings with Mason officials, the lawsuit claims. So from my understanding, Ford tried to come in and say, yo, we want to come in and we are going to basically own this town, or we're going to take over the finances as long as you allow us to build a plant here. We also want to give the black folks jobs here, so nobody has to move out. Nobody is going to be controlled by some massa, some slave, or whatever, slave owner, or whatever the case is. We are going to come here. We're going to fix things. Thumbhead boy didn't want that. Obviously, he don't want the advancement of black folks. Not only were the black folks there in Mason, Tennessee, doing, oh shit, I gotta charge this shit. Not only were they doing what white folks always tell us to do, pick ourselves up by our bootstraps. Not only were they thriving in doing that, at some point before he came in and purposely tried to muddy the waters, outside forces, Ford, came in and was like, we will support this town. We will pay for all this. Just allow us to get this plant going so we can get this shit started. We will hire these people, It's an American company that makes American vehicles that's going to hire Americans to make the American vehicles. It's a win-win for the American economy. We win because we get another plant, we get more business. They win because they get more jobs, they get money and all that other stuff. America wins because America money is being spent in America, being made by Americans. Thumbhead ass, who I'm pretty sure he and his other KKK buddies will call themselves patriots of this country. Good old red-blooded Americans, right? Still, seeing Black Americans trying to elevate and do better, and anybody willing to come in and be an ally and help out, they don't want to see that. So they would rather see America taking more hits economically than to see a Black person make money. Whether that be with a white-owned business like Ford, or especially if it's us making our own. I don't know how long else. Yeah, this is a pretty lengthy article. Hell yeah. As always, description box below. I don't want to take up too much time. Pretty much I wanted to shed light on that. You can read the rest of the article. I'm not. At least not on the podcast. I've been reading into this stuff for weeks, ever since I got notice of it. In fact, when was it written? April 3rd. So I want to say around that time, probably like even a month before that or the end of the previous month. This dumbhead ass dude is just horrendous. God damn. Since I got to look at him, y'all got to look at him. Damn. Anyways, that's the appropriate amount of time, I believe. I've been just researching and looking into the Mason, Tennessee shit. And of course, updates will continue as I continue to get updates. But I just wanted to let y'all know about that. I'm surprised this is not going to be a 2-hour long episode. It's not. But I want to let y'all know about what was going on in Mason, Tennessee. Please support what's going on. They also have a website. I will also have that in the description box below. A website of what is going down and all that other good shite. That's a good question. I'm asking myself, can I download the audio for this? Anyways, I should be able to do so. I'll find out how. So will there's a way. Anyways, it is fuck. But I got one more topic to talk about, and it's about the shooting that occurred last Sunday in Buffalo, New York. All right. Yeah, this is still a pro-Black podcast. This is still a podcast where I talk about Black people, Black issues. You got a problem with that? Suck my Black dick and get the fuck on. Anyways, my big Black dick, let me put it that way, and then get the fuck on. Just get out of here. All right? So reason why I didn't record last week is because of this shooting. I was in too much of an emotional state to even record, because I would have said, and now a lot of this shit that I'm still going to say, I'm not going to take back. But I would have said a lot more. I would have been a lot more dramatic. Let me just put it that way. Had I recorded last week, especially when talking about the first topic about the whole Gaston shit. You saw, I cut that shit short, by the way. I noticed I was going on about that for about longer than I intended it to be. But had I recorded last Sunday when the shooting happened, I would have said a whole lot of worse shit that I'd said about the guest, because I couldn't. And I just did not want to do that. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to upload the interview that I did. That will be the last interview that I ever upload on the Earnest Thoughts podcast. And then I will do the separation of the interviews to the guest spotlight. Because I still wanted to give people something. I also uploaded the live stream that I did. You can see the playback on YouTube. I did that live stream elsewhere, but I also uploaded it to all the other places, whatever. I uploaded it to Spotify and all the other platforms that I anchor and all that I do the podcast, because again, that was actually a podcast stream that I did the previous Sunday, so Mother's Day. I did it that day. But then again, I planned on recording last week, but then the Tops shooting happened. And again, I just was like, yeah, you know what? If I get on now, I'm going to end up saying shit that's going to get me kicked off these other platforms. Now, YouTube is probably still going to kick me. They're probably going to be like, okay, we gave you the chance to live stream again, and you ruined it again. You're out of here, buddy. They might do it. They just might do it. I'm still taking the chance to say what the hell I'm going to say about this topic, though. And then if they don't like it, they can also suck my big black dick and get the fuck on. Anyways, so for those who don't know, pretty much some ugly ass Ed Sheeran looking motherfucker, kinda Ed Sheeran looking motherfucker, white supremacist, went into a grocery store called Tops in Buffalo, New York, that is in this area that is predominantly lower class black folks or poor black folks. I'm just going to keep it real poor black. I'm a poor black myself. Poor black folks and shit. And he shot 13 people. He killed 10, but he shot 13 people at this grocery store. He went there with the intent to exterminate the black folks there. He had a bunch of mockery written on his AR-15. He had, "Here's your reparations," written on the rifle. He had the number 14, which is white supremacist number for what is the year? 1488, I believe, or whatever the case is. It's a symbol of that. He had nigger written on the the gun as well. He had a bunch of stuff just written on the gun, just again to mock black folks, right? He wrote in 180-page manifesto, pretty much detailing why he did it. I've seen some people sharing the manifesto around with the attempt of saying we need to understand what these white folks are thinking, these white supremacists are thinking. So we need to read what they got going on. I'm telling y'all right now, I already understand what their motive is and what's going on. I don't want to read their fucking manifestos. I don't even want to read an 18-line manifesto, let alone a 180 fucking page manifesto from ugly Ed Sheeran, ugly racist Ed Sheeran, about why he wants to kill black folks and Jewish people. I don't. What I want is for this dude to be dead, which unfortunately he's not. What I want is for him and people like him to die, which, fortunately that does happen, but not fast enough, in my opinion. These are some of the things I would have said last week too, and like I said, some of the things aren't going to change, but some things I'm going to hold myself back on. Me saying I want white supremacists to die is not one of those things. YouTube could be mad about it. I'm going to get this audio. I'm going to upload this shit as many places as I can. Go ahead and shut me down. All right? As long as I got the copies of the audio, somebody's going to take it. somebody's gonna take it. Anyways, so he did that, and like, what else am I to say? I know people. Again, there are people going to be like, we have to keep these people alive because, as I was stating before, people want to know what these folks are thinking. What's their motive? This, that, and the third. Again, I don't necessarily need it. Like, when somebody makes it clear that they are a white supremacist and they are a white supremacist terrorist and they have certain viewpoints about black people, Jewish people, people of the LGBT community, people of other ethnicities. I think it's clear as day if you understand what these hate groups are and what they stand for. I think it's clear as day what the motive is of someone of that hate group when they carry out an act like this or any other type of hate crime. I think it's clear as day what the motive is. Therefore, I don't need to keep them alive. Therefore, if they have their gun pointed at their throat and they're ready to blam because they punk bitch ass self cannot face a day in prison, although there's Nazi gangs in prisons they can buddy up with, but they know damn well they can't survive. They can't fight. They can't do anything. Why do you think the dude shot mainly old, elderly people? I think that was purposely. Before I even go further, because I meant to do this at the beginning, I want to read off the names of the 10 deaths. If my phone fucking stops being a little bitch. I got to stop cursing so much. One of my good podcasting homies pretty much wanted to know why people curse so much, right? I understand he found God and everything, and he's doing what he's doing. Y'all should have saw the topics or heard the topics he was talking about prior to him finding God. I mean, my man did a total 180. Shout out to him. I'm waiting on this to load. But anyways, not to get on my guy or whatever. Trying to keep my spirit as high as possible, so I'm not, there it goes, the names. So before I go any further, I just want to say rest in peace to Celestine Cheney, 65. Roberta A. Drury, who was 32. Andre McNeil, who was 53. Catherine Massey, Massey, sorry if I'm mispronouncing these names, who was 72. Margus D. Morrison, who was 52. Hayward Patterson, who was 67. Aaron Salter Jr., who was 55. Geraldine Talley, who was 62. Ruth Whitfield, who was 87. And Pearl Young, who was 77 years old. Youngest person was 32 years old. Youngest individual who died at the hands of ugly Ed Sheeran, right? So I think not only was obviously the fact that the majority of these victims being black was the reason why he did what he did, to go after black folks. But I think the age plays a big, big, big part as to why he attacked them. These are older black people, especially someone who was, 87, I believe? Someone who was up there in age. A lot of them, a lot of these individuals, like most elderly folks, most folks in their 60s and 70s and 80s, they're not people, you see me and you're like, man, you're physically fit. I'm 30 years old. Now, hopefully I continue on looking as good or looking better than I do now at 30 years when I get to their age, God willing. But I don't think a lot of old people are physically fit like that, and especially these people, if they're just trying to shop, They shouldn't have to worry about being physically fit to fight off an attacker. They just going and shopping. They spent 60, 70, 80 years on this planet, just, and not all of those years shopping, but they spent a, well over half their life shopping in stores, and nothing of this nature happened, or at least to my knowledge, nothing of what happened to them that day ever happened. They never saw it. So of course they went into a shopping store. They probably been shopping at Tops for years, but they went into a grocery store thinking that this would just be another day at the grocery store. They go in, they get what they want, they get out, they go back to their homes, and la-di-da, right? So what I'm saying here is, I think the dude purposely chose this store, purposely chose to kill those people, because his punk ass knew that, and he's 18 years old, by the way, but he knew that there wasn't going to be somebody strong enough, younger, or even older, like me. I'm older than dude, but not saying that he wouldn't have shot me had I done something. But if there were a bunch of 30-year-olds there, especially fit ones, or people who just look like they will really fight back, I think dude would have second thoughts. I think it's the same situation with Dylann Roof. He went into that church with a bunch of older people there, and he thought these were the perfect victims. They're old, they can't fight back. But a lot of these punk ass racists, they're going after the weak victims, although they think all black folks are inferior, yet they go after the quote unquote weak victims, the weaker people. And what I mean by that, and I mean just as far as physical strength, because of their age. But no matter the age of these people, what this man did was wrong, obviously. Ain't no way in hell am I going to say we need to come together and hug, and I'm not forgiving this motherfucker. I'm not forgiving ugly Ed Sheeran. I'm not. Ed Sheeran gonna have to pay for this. No, I'm just joking on that, but I'm not forgiving dude. He should be fucking dead. And people can go on and on and on and try to deny what this is about. This was a white supremacist attack. This ain't about mental health. This ain't about gun control. This was about the extermination of Black Americans. Call it that. It was a hate crime. When Asians was getting beat the fuck up and all that other shit, he was quick to call it a hate crime. So why not with black folks? Why not? All these people are very dismissive when it comes to black folks, and this stuff ain't it's not surprising. But I'm here to still talk about it because it needs to be discussed. To all the people out there that's going to say some goofy shit, as I know, it's about the guns and stuff. You see why nobody's really talking much about it is because they know that they can't spin it any type of way that they usually do to try to spin this shit. They can't blame it on the guns. Because he had a bulletproof vest on. He was shot by the security guard, the former police officer who was the security guard of the top store, who gave his life to protecting individuals. He had a gun on him. He shot ugly Ed Sheeran. And I don't know the dude's name, and I don't care to know his name. He's always going to be ugly Ed Sheeran to me. He shot ugly Ed Sheeran. Unfortunately, the bullet did not penetrate the bulletproof vest and kill ugly Ed Sheeran. But that man would have been a hero had he shot ugly Ed Sheeran in the face or somewhere where there was no bulletproof protection on his body. He would have been a hero. And y'all out there saying, or a guy with a gun, or to stop this is not how to, and allowing people with guns is not how to, bullshit. Bullshit. This man would have probably thought twice had he, because he scoped the store out the night before he shot up the place. There's an employee there that was saying that she had to kick him out because he was acting like a damn bum, going around asking people for change and all that other stuff. When what he was actually doing was scoping the store out, looking at the victims. 300 fucking miles he drove to attack this place. 300 miles. This man knew what he was doing. Don't give me the mental health shit. He's a sicko, like all racists, but he knew what he was doing. He knew to wear protection because I'm sure he probably saw the guard had the gun on his waist and was like, okay, if I plan out this attack, this guy is going to shoot. He's going to use that gun. So let me not just go here with a fucking draped in my Confederate flag. I gotta be bulletproofed out. You know? My Confederate flag, as much as I love it, it's not going to stop a bullet. It's not a bulletproof flag. So he knew it. He knew within his mind what to do, what to wear, what gun, what all that other shit to do what he wanted to do. The man who gave his life shot him. Unfortunately, it didn't work. He shot the man back. The man was not protected, or at least not protected enough for the bullets of the AR-15 to not kill him, because it did. But I know there's going to be someone like, well, there was somebody with a gun and he still ended up dying. So what's the point? The point is, the next time some asshole tries to pull a stunt, whether this be race-related or whatever like that, if there's somebody with a gun to stop that individual, because every fucking second counts, and you out here talking about waiting on the cops. Well, if we take away the guns from everybody, then these things won't happen. That is impossible. That is impossible for you to think that's pie in the sky. That's impossible. For starters, as I've stated in the past, if we're going to take away the guns from everyday individuals, if I have to give up my weapons and my right to bear arms, so do the police. So does the military. And guess what? That means we will have to stop the wars, the endless wars that we have going on. We will have to stop that. We will have to be a nation without an army. We will have to be a nation with a police force that is not armed. If we're going to take away my guns, my right, somebody else's right, I want everybody else to not have guns either. Because I do not trust the police with all the guns. I certainly don't trust the army with all those guns. You can be an idiot and think that all you want. Simply don't get a gun. But when situations like this happen, you tell me at the end of the day, and I'm going to end it off here. You tell me which one is more dangerous to you, or which one is the likely outcome. Do you want ugly variants of white celebrities running around here with their inferiority complex, taking out people who they deem inferior, and no one to come and protect them because You took away the guns. You took away my guns, so I can't shoot at them. You took away other people's guns, so they can't do anything about it. You gave all of our guns to the police, but the police station is an hour away. It's 10 minutes away. It's 5 minutes away. Hell, even if it's down the street, a minute away, every fucking second counts. And as you were taking away all of our guns, somehow ugly Ed Sheeran's did not get his guns taken away. Or he knows people within the law enforcement that supplied him with the gun. And he carried out what he carried out. Would you rather have me have a gun so I can do something and help out? Or would you rather have the police take whatever time, how much ever time they're going to take, and wait for them to come? And they didn't even shoot this guy. They convinced the guy not to kill himself. And I want to make that point, as I stated in the past before. People are going to say, well, do you want the police to kill these people like they've been killing black folks? Yes. Yes, I absolutely want the police to kill white supremacist racists because they kill unarmed black folks like nothing. Yes. Yes, I'm not going to be ashamed of that. I absolutely want that. That's exactly what I want. If you can kill this unarmed black person running away or complying with you, why can't you shoot this person who clearly has killed and clearly is armed? It's because you don't view them as a threat. White dude can have blood on his hands, literally. Blood on his hands. And you still won't view that man as a threat, but you'll view me as a threat. Got it. It's been another episode of Ernest Thoughts Podcast with your host, Ernest. You love Ernest, same guy, different name. I'll try to include the timestamps in the description box below. No one came on here and watched, or at least someone came in and peeked and they peeked out. But someone is always doing that with all my live streams. Don't know who, whatever. Hopefully y'all watch the after show. If you're watching, if you're listening to this on Spotify, Anchor, or whatever, wherever you're listening to this, appreciate the listen. Give this podcast a share. Subscribe to the podcast as well. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, whether you're watching this on YouTube or you see the YouTube link in the description box below. Please subscribe. Hit the other links down there as well. Get the merch for the Ernest Thoughts Podcast. I mean, there's black clothing there, so y'all can check that stuff out. But for the Ernest Thoughts Podcast as well. Once again, check out the other links. The link to my anti-disaster class if you want to know what it's like to be a podcast or how to get into podcasting. Sign up for the courses. You will not be disappointed. I'm just burping. I'm sorry, y'all. And yawning. So I'm going to get off here. I'm tired at this moment. I gotta think of an appropriate time to do this stuff. But thanks for listening. Stay black if you're black. Stay beautiful. Black Lives Matter. LGBTQIA+ lives matter. Trans lives matter. Black trans lives matter. Black women matter. Black men matter. And you matter if you're not a fucking Nazi scum pig. And I'm out. Peace.